And it's strange that you guys also met in pretty high places before coming back down to share the knowledge.
54 Collective, because we strongly believe that there is no country that needs to be excluded, that doesn't have opportunity, that doesn't have entrepreneurs, that needs to be backed.
We do it because we believe in it, but we do it because we believe it's good business, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion is the best way to go find a new entrepreneur with a new idea that no other VC has the time or the energy or the money to go find.
So we're seeing a lot of entrepreneurs in Southeast Asia really interested in and are going to be expanding to Africa as well as vice versa.
Welcome in the Valley. I'm your host today and my name is Ibrahim Sanya. We have an amazing show today, but before that, a gentle reminder. Press that subscribe button, join the community of funders and founders, changing sports, tech, entertainment, and fashion from Africa to the rest of the world. And never miss a thing. Enjoy the show.
Hey guys, so good to have you.
Hi, Ibrahim.
Hi.
Hey, Ibrahim.
Wow. Such a pleasure to have you guys all the way from various places in the world. Bongani, in your hometown, Joburg. In the meantime, Alina, how far have you come?
I've come 18 hours from Bangkok, Thailand.
Damn.
18.
Wow.
The world is small, but
I
it's
thought
not
coming
that small.
from Cairo was a journey. How about you, Roo?
I am from little old London.
Tell us how many hours?
It's 11 hours, but it's straight all the way down.
Wow. Well, it's a delight to have you guys here. It was fun to be all together for the board meetings of 54 Collective. So now we're all around the table with the original X-Men.
And women.
And women. How did it all start?
The three of us have different stories of our love affair for the continent. But what really tied us together is that we wanted to see many more founders starting businesses, succeeding, and getting to scale and getting to exits, and really showing to the world that Africa is not a kind of a case for charity or for non-for-profit organizations, which of course, there's a place for, but it's a real case for commercial and impact growth. And it is significant, and that the talent here is incredibly strong. And we wanted to play a part in that. And I think that's what brought Bongani and Roo and I together.
So I think the best analogy might be the Avengers versus the X-Men, because you are each in your own right, your own superhero. So Bongani, I know that in your own case, you went from operator to investor. So why don't we start with the adventures of Bongani Man?
No, thanks, Ibrahim. I guess maybe to take a little bit a step back, the idea of entrepreneurship in this continent is one that is quite important and actually needed. And when you look at history, many years ago, many countries that we look at as superpowers today, they're really driven by people who decided to take a risk to solve certain problems. And today, when you look at these markets, it just feels like it has always been that way, and of which that's not true. It's very few people who decided to take a path that is uncharted. And if that holds true, you then need to look at vehicles with which enable one to take risk, to essentially build something that has never been there before. And if you fast forward that to Africa, there has to be people who then think about how do you replicate the same in a market that is not being seen as very promising in comparison. But over the last 30 to 50 years, you look at the shift of entrepreneurship and economics from the East to the West, and rather from the West to the East, and now sort of shifting into Africa, which is quite interesting. And the question is, where are the people who are going to take that risk, and who needs to support that initiative or initiatives to be able to build a path for the future that should paint Africa as a possibility. And my story is one that is not different in a sense that growing up in a rural South Africa, never had a possibility or even a thought that one day I'll see myself in Joburg, let alone running a business and being an entrepreneur. Be that as it may, fast forward, I think the world has got its own way to channel one's path. With my mother being an entrepreneur and working quite hard, I've learned a lot from her. And that was really a path that I then took as an opportunity to see if I can be able to change the dynamics of what I saw around me. And inherently that led me to be an entrepreneur. And being a first-time founder in my family and not having uncles and brothers around you who know what it means to build businesses, it means you have to surround yourself with great talent, with opportunity, and there has to be a bit of luck in entrepreneurship and resilience. And that is actually what led me to essentially move from being an operator and to think about how do we actually replicate the model. And the only way to do it is to build a structure that is able to find entrepreneurs who don't see problems as a stumbling block, but as an opportunity to innovate. And it's from that background that has led me to be sitting with my partners to think about the possibility of what it means to be an investor in this continent and how do we utilize entrepreneurship as a path to solving some local challenges with an understanding of local markets.
Amazing. And Roo, you seem to be Captain America or Captain Britain that assembled all of this.
Being Captain Britain is not very exciting these days. We're a little island lost at shore from the rest of the continent. And I think that actually reflects my role here. I'm not captain, I am partner, and very proudly partner with Alina and Bongani. I think what I like about what Bongani said is I think a very big ingredient to building a business is luck. And then managing timing and the timing of that luck. And in both my partners, I had a lot of luck to meet them. I met Alina on top of a hill in Nepal as we were building a fund called Spring. I met Bongani on the 11th floor as I was meeting someone else of Standard Bank. And that luck has brought us here today.
Wow, this is amazing.
Very nice.
So actually it all started in mountains. So just for your own knowledge, a lot of people don't know this, the podcast is called In the Valley for that exact image, that great moments of knowledge occur in hills, irrespective of the prophet you see in any holy book. And they come back down to the valley to share. And it's strange that you guys also met in pretty high places before coming back down.
Yeah, that's
to
very
share
nice.
the knowledge.
Yeah,
Just shows where the world is going. We want to build this continent to be high.
Wow, beautiful. This is fantastic. And I want to give a chance to the audience to hear more about your mission, because I know in your case, Roo, you've worked with your partners to really drive quite a formidable army of investors in a very short time on the continent. So it's not an easy job to be a VC or any investment platform, because at any given time, you have a dual marital duty. On one end with entrepreneurs and another with investors. Why don't you tell us more about that complicated marriage affair?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I believe that businesses are just collections of brilliant people organized to sort of achieve a common vision, right? And so our business starts with finding exceptionally talented people who are deeply collaborative and creative, right? And those actually, that intersection of creativity and technical capability, it's quite unusual. It's hard to find that. And the reason that we care so much about finding those people is they help us achieve a vision. And the vision is very simple, right? The vision is we fundamentally believe that entrepreneurs have the power and the capacity to make enormous change. Economies that have entrepreneurs have more solutions to more local problems, right? The problem is that entrepreneurship is not, or the capacity of entrepreneurship is not fairly distributed all around the world. Africa is 1.1 billion people, but it gets less than 2% of the total VC funding, right? So to what Alina was saying, like we had to ask ourselves, how do we build a model, right, that reflects the needs of Africa in the time of where we are today, that is successful and is going to meet and reach as many entrepreneurs as possible. Not your typical entrepreneur, not the ones that graduate universities and or come, to Africa to save the universe and have a savior complex. Real entrepreneurs, right? The ones like Bongani's mother, right? Those who are not being seen and should be seen and should be supported. That's how we create change. And the answer was a really interesting mix of being hyper-local, right? Being in the market, not seeing the market as somewhere foreign to be dominated or to be conquered, but somewhere to work, to invest in, somewhere where it's our home, right? And then is to find a way to fund those entrepreneurs and to build for what they. And the model, that typical 2 and 20 model, where you just sign a check in Africa, is not the right model for today, right? We need to provide more services and more support to the entrepreneur to scale, right? We're not on our second, third, or fourth generation of startups in Africa. We're still very much on our first generation. So we have to work a little harder, just like we had to in America, just like we had to in China and India. This is not unusual. That's the business we're in. We are in the business of helping first generation entrepreneurs succeed. And to do that, you have to break that model whereby you have a tiny amount of money, a 2% management fee to actually help entrepreneurs. You need more. And so first thing that we did is we built an operating company. And that operating company gave us more capital to be able to do more things and hire more people, right? And it also allowed us to deploy capital in a more efficient way, in a more targeted way to entrepreneurs that need it. And so while the model was great, then you have to find visionary investors, because investors, to be honest, are lazy. They like absolute traditional models that they just know it's a 2 and 20 model. We'll do it again, right? Let me tick the box and it's done, and I can tell my boss or my investor that it's done. Right?
And I can keep my job.
Yeah, I can keep my job. Because now I look back at it, 2017, asking an investor to invest in sort of new time investors with a new model in a complex market. That could take decades to find that. And we found them very, very quickly, and they supported us very, very quickly. Go ahead, Lina.
Yeah, I think it's worth sort of sharing how the model has evolved from what Roo was describing in terms of the type of a structure that would support the entrepreneurs that we continue to support, but also reflects the change in the market. Again, just to emphasize, Africa is not what it was, back in 2017. The ecosystem, the innovation ecosystem, is not the same. And part of that has been the education that we had to do, along with other stakeholders, in creating that right ecosystem. So the reason I say that is when we started, it was very much a sort of a marriage between, or rather an approach that understood that mutually beneficial growth between a corporate and a startup is a good thing, and that we can have the right type of motivators and incentives for the corporate and the entrepreneur to work together. And it sounds obvious now, but again, at the time, that wasn't the case. But we didn't remain to be sort of just focusing on corporations as our investors, because we did see that the diversity and sort of size as well of different types of funders is important. To Bongani's point, I think that there is a recognition that the continent is a place to do business, but is also an exciting place to be, having a family and growing, the next generation of amazing people. Wow. So I think that all sort of collectively paints the picture of how we relatively quickly were able to scale really fast and become who we are today under Bongani's leadership.
I'm not to be the interviewer.
All rules are absent here.
Okay,
it's the valley. There's no rule.
I have a genuine curiosity that I'm going to ask Bongani.
Please go ahead.
Right. So after all these years,
Yeah.
right, over 5 years, 6 years of working with corporates in South Africa, we found some incredible corporates that we've worked with that had vision, supported us. But if you were going to speak to an entrepreneur today, would you say that Africa corporate economy is friendly to startups or still hostile?
In many ways, I would say it's still very hostile. Founders today, they still have quite a lot of trust deficit. And to basically just walk into a corporate, it's still difficult. And the main reason for that is not necessarily the relationship between corporate and the startups per se. It's the fact that the market itself, it's still so much driven by traditional approaches to business, and also lack of understanding, to my point earlier around VC as an asset class. It's a very new model to a market that we operate within. So if you're walking into a room where a corporate is actually run by non-entrepreneurs, in so to speak, you of course will experience some challenges, and hence the reason why they need to be able to facilitate that process for entrepreneurs.
I think that is really important, because I think that in my experience of working with corporates here is that they still think size matters.
Yeah.
The fact that they're big is actually something to be an advantage to be held over an entrepreneur. But it's actually the higher you are, the bigger you are, the more you fall. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
No, it's definitely a powerful point. It's interesting also to see that besides successfully raising a lot of money, because you guys have stayed on the grammatical side of your success, not on the arithmetic side. So I think the number of dollars you've raised so far is over 100 million in less than 4 years, right?
Yeah.
And that number continues to climb. Where is it now?
The money.
Yes.
The bag of money.
I'm not trying to
Right here in my pocket.
No, to date, we raised $114 million US, but we continue to raise.
Excellent.
Because,
So,
Africa needs more money.
and how many founders have you backed so far?
So after 6 years of being in the market and operating in various African countries, we have managed to invest into 72 ventures to date.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I understand that you guys are present beside South Africa. You guys have offices in other places.
Yes, we're very intentional from day one that we wanted to be a Pan-African company.
The last name and the name is 54 Collective. It's not one collective.
It's a collection of many countries in one continent, which we strongly believe that there is a huge potential to find entrepreneurs that need support, that needs to be backed across these markets. If you look at the ownership, or at least, countries with the largest GDPs across Africa, you're looking at 11 countries that are contributing 70% of the $3.5 trillion in Africa. And the question is, how do you actually start to find opportunities in places where, these countries are not contributing as much to the GDP, but there's a lot of talent coming out of there. There's a lot of innovation. How do you create that cross-pollination? So to that end, that has led us to be a Pan-African company, and hence the name 54 Collective, because we strongly believe that there's no country that needs to be excluded, that doesn't have opportunity, that doesn't have entrepreneurs, that needs to be backed. As a company, we actually exist to redefine investments across Africa so that entrepreneurs build without boundaries. And that means a couple of things. The first is that we have baked in diversified capital, or catalytic capital, as it were, that enables you as an entrepreneur to receive equity capital from our VC fund, but you also receive a catalytic capital to be able to build and hire more people in your team. The market calls that a little bit of a patient capital, but it's baked into our model. We also have a team that is built to essentially work with entrepreneurs. And that side of our company is called a platform where you will get intervention support along the journey of building a business, right from concept up to pre-Series A. You will have access to people at any given stage of building your business to make sure that we de-risk your venture. We give you access to market. We give you opportunity to distribute your product, and we enable scale for these ventures. Because our goal as a company, 54 Collective, is not only to build businesses in Africa, but also to look for opportunities to expand outside Africa, to provide entrepreneurs with opportunities to be in markets where their product can be able to find scale.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I also understand that 54 Collective is very unique. Everybody is doing equity VC, but you guys decided that that pool was not sufficient for you.
Yeah. I guess maybe let me start here, right? So money has got voice and language, right? And if you think about the type of capital that you receive, inherently, without anyone saying anything to you, there is a voice attached to that ticket size. And it comes with expectations as well. But the problem is that sometimes the language that backs the ticket size might ignore the realities of what's happening on the ground. I'm saying this because if you look at the model of VC as it stands, coming from overseas market, the language that's being used in the West seems to want to translate in the same way in the market that doesn't operate like the West. So the expectation of the ticket size and the realities on the ground is actually not the same. So to that end, we've learned a lot coming out of Founders Factory Africa to build 54 Collective, because it's a collective of learnings that we have had. And few things that were important for us was to understand the typical model at stance of VC, which is equity or capital for equity, which comes with expectations because we need to return money to our investors. But we've realized that in itself, it's part of the story, not a full story. African founders struggle quite a lot with capital. I think to Roo's point earlier when he said only 2% of the global capital come to Africa. So that tells you that a continent of 54 countries, 1.2 billion, and you do your math, right, around the capital that's flowing to the continent is not enough. Let alone my analogy of the voice that comes with a VC ticket size. That's ignoring the nuances of the market. So what we have then done as a company was to understand that model in our context, but also understood the additionality for African founders. And we've realized that many companies, especially early stage, they struggle to build their businesses with the size of check that they receive or that's available in the market. So we then decided to build a catalytic model that basically suggests that you can have a pocket of capital that in itself is a little bit patient, taking into consideration the market, to help you build, de-risk your business, ability to hire more people, and also have an equity capital for growth. So we combine those two things because of the market context. Over and above that, we've realized that money in itself is not enough. To Alina's point earlier, we needed to build a huge pool of a team across Africa that can be able to support entrepreneurs on the ground to build locally with local founders. So as a founder coming to 54 Collective, 3 things that you get that's very unique to all the VCs in the continent. You get equity capital, you get catalytic capital to build, de-risk your business. You also get hands-on support along your journey, right from concept up to pre-A or pre-Series A, and you get that intervention support. And I think that speaks to your question, Roo, earlier of, is there still a challenge between corporates and Africa? And the answer is yes. And to be able to connect the two, build, de-risk, and think about scale and opportunity of distribution, we needed to build the rest of our team that's distributed across the continent to provide those three things that I've mentioned.
Amazing. It appears to me when I hear Bongani, both for Roo and Alina, that the culture of the organization is a lot anchored around disseminating knowledge, findings, and best practices. So far, some cultures have some proximity, which is Asia and Africa. Maybe you peel the onion for us a little bit.
So we were really conscious not to create hierarchy in any form of growth that we create. So we don't consider ourselves a top co. We consider ourselves a partnership. And we are partners, all three of us. Okay. We collectively have that vision. We have that vision for Africa, and that's where 54 Collective comes in. So that is our structure. We're going to go to new geographies and more places. And I think that's important. I think that the one thing I'll add is culture is really important. And it's very much driven on values and ethics, but it's actually not the reason that we do it. We don't do it to write down our values on a website, or if we have to remind ourselves of our ethics, then we aren't very good at what we do. We do it because we believe in it, but we do it because we believe it's good business, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion is the best way to go find a new entrepreneur with a new idea that no other VC has the time or the energy or the money to go find, right? Our values of supporting risk and taking risk, right, and enabling people to fail is the best way to go find first-time entrepreneurs and enable them to try and get to market in a way that nobody else would. So our values are actually our business tactics. They're one and the same thing. And I think that's a really important part of our culture.
But I think if you look at the systemic change that we're creating as our collective, it's quite significant. So Bongani spoke about, again, that the number of people that are working full-time specialists, right, across Africa, across all the offices. That is jobs, right? But also the jobs that are created with our respective companies. That's employment, and that's supporting youth, and again, the next generation of Africans. And so jobs is a huge part of our systemic impact, as is gender inclusion. And that's one of the very proud statistics is that we're well beyond.
Over 50%.
We are, which is unheard of, I think.
I don't know if there's any other continent company where over 50% of the founders are women.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That is... I think beyond being inclusive, that's one of the biggest metric that I've been impressed to see.
And that's very intentional. And coincidentally, I think when I was talking to Roo and Alina, you look at how we consistently, as a company inside or internally, so to speak, we have found ourselves being at 50-50 staff-wise from the bottom up, right? So it's natural for us to want to create parity even outside the company in terms of seeing potential in women. So that for us has never really been a far-fetched ideology that we need to strive too hard to achieve, because we are very intentional about how we actually enable that, both internally and the continent.
That's amazing. Yeah. Especially in your own case, your YC was your mom.
Exactly.
Poster child.
So it all makes sense. All adds up.
They say that to go fast, go alone. To go far, go together. We chose both. We evolved from accelerator model to venture capital firm, sub-Saharan to Pan-African, sector-specific to sector-agnostic, and from corporate to diverse investors. In the process, we evolved into 54 Collective, a Pan-African venture capital firm. We support entrepreneurs across Africa whilst driving commercial and impact returns. we provide knowledge and resources to young African entrepreneurs, empowering them to solve local challenges, to build products that will drive economic growth and create sustainable jobs in their communities. More so, we strive to increase women participation in entrepreneurship. And our goal is to invest in 50% of women-founded ventures. We offer catalytic capital and access to the largest venture support team on the continent. By connecting the 54 countries of our continent, we are tapping into the power of collective action and redefining investment as a catalyst for African ingenuity and prosperity. When we empower African founders to overcome social inequality, funding roadblocks, and market entry barriers, the entire collective has the potential to grow beyond borders, beyond limitations, and beyond boundaries. Because when we come together, we go further, faster. Together, we are 54 Collective. Come and join us in helping African founders build without boundaries.
Steve Jobs is saying that, you cannot connect the dots looking forward. It's only backwards.
Yeah.
I think this is a moment like this.
It's not to say that it's easy, right? And it's not to say that our job is done, because why not have 70%? Why not have 80%?
Wow.
But jokes aside, I think it is very much intentional, and we work really hard at it. And that's why also we have a variety of different initiatives, but also programs. So Generation Founder, GenF, maybe Bongani can talk about it, was intentionally sort of created to inspire and bring aspiring entrepreneurs, including, of course, definitely women, as well as the other initiatives like the Venture Design Academy. But Bongani, I don't know, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so perhaps maybe let me start with the structure of our team. That is very intentionally built to support entrepreneurs. So to date, we're sitting with over 65 people across the continent. That is important for us. And we have done that because we have to be on the ground. One, to find these women entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in general, but also to instill confidence on the ground so that it doesn't feel like it's an overseas model that is a plug and play into a continent without understanding the challenges on the ground. So with that in mind, we've built a team of specialists coming from backgrounds of entrepreneurship, from product growth, talent, through a platform to help with all of these challenges that entrepreneurs face, including partnerships, which you referenced earlier, Roo. So a combination of that has led us to create intentional initiatives to be able to drive our outcomes of investing in Africa from concept to pre-Series A. So we've got 3 focus areas. I'll start with Generation F founders. We call it GenF, which is an initiative to essentially find young entrepreneurs in the continent, and particularly women, who come into a 3 months program to work with them to prepare them to be investable. Right. That creates a pipeline for pre-seed businesses in our VC structure. And the second side of our investment is really existing businesses on the model or on the continent, right from pre-seed up to pre-A, that we invest into. Along that investment path, we have seen that few women struggle with building VC backable businesses. They come with these great ideas, but sometimes they just need a little bit support. And we've got initiatives like Sandbox that's supporting women to be in VC backable. And again, that's why we have a high number of women in our investments. The last initiative that we have is called Entrepreneur Academy. The goal, and maybe to start with a little bit of a story, when you look at the West, you will realize that a young person, they have a choice, right? Do I want to join a corporate or do I want to become an entrepreneur? Today, that choice is actually in par, right, with a typical job in the market, whereas Africa is different. And the question is, how do you actually build it? How do you actually enable and catalyze entrepreneurship at the very bottom of the pyramid? We help these young entrepreneurs to actually realize entrepreneurship as a path to be able to build businesses and build a career, and as such building the continent. So we take them into a six weeks training structure. We invest into these young entrepreneurs to start their first business. It might not be a VC backable business, but the goal is to catalyze entrepreneurship. I think in a market, or a nascent market like ours, the goal is to increase a pool of entrepreneurs. If you can do that, you increase the likelihood of a VC model over time succeeding, because you are bringing more entrepreneurs into the ecosystem. And that's what VDA, more broadly, or Venture Design Academy, as it were, is trying to solve for in the market.
I must congratulate you guys for that. Don't think you realize how valuable this work is for the continent, because you have your YC, you have your 500 Global. The biggest issue we constantly have as a continent is that refining of quality, refining of raw material, whether under the ground or standing on the ground, i.e. human, is absent.
Yeah.
So what you're doing here can only be lauded because it stays.
Yeah.
And the time utilization, when you think about optimizing time, is a massive debate.
Yeah.
Whether humans going to learn biology, languages, grammar, what is the net utility of all that knowledge you take at school? But the academy, central set of skill, you disseminate, you can rest assured will be utilized at some point for those people.
Yeah.
But just in terms of full optimization, that is powerful to lay that on the fabric of the continent.
100%.
I agree with that.
So really, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. The one thing I'm curious about, and whoever among you wants to answer should feel free to. What do you think is the biggest misconception which exists about 54 collectives in the market?
I think it's really important, this idea that creating value and showing entrepreneurs can make money is so vital, because where I'm from, people hear that I work in Africa and they go, oh, that's so nice of you. And it's so poor and it must be so corrupt. And how do you deal with the regulation? And that actually does have an effect, the perception of Africa, right? Because it means that a lot of foreign investment doesn't come in. And when it does come in, it comes in such a conservative, de-risked way. Like it comes in as private equity or late stage. And the truth of the matter is, as we've shown by the size of our portfolio and the success of our portfolio, is there are just as good entrepreneurs here as there are anywhere else in the world, right?
Yeah.
And they're exceptional and they deserve all the support that they can get. And the truth of the matter is that we are here to enable that and to change that perception and to encourage investors to start early. Start at the beginning of an entrepreneur's journey. Grow the funnel. Find more people with more ideas that might build that unicorn to come in. Because investing later stage, investing at the end of the journey, when you can calculate all the risk, when you can measure all the opportunity, when you can hire an analyst to measure an entrepreneur, it's too late.
It's too late.
Right?
No.
We don't need more DFIs or more private equity firms or anything else like that coming in and putting more money later. We need more people, especially corporates, right, to come in at the beginning, because that's how you grow the funnel and that's how you create more opportunity and that's how you create a long-term startup economy.
I love that. I love growing the funnel. That's one of the best thing. 54 Collective.
That's what we do. It all starts, if there's no beginning, there's no end.
Correct.
Right?
I'm going to ask you a specific question because I know you speak of a flat partnership, but I know you've been a connecting tissue, a pipeline of the machine.
The answer is I grew up with a huge amount of privilege, unlike my two partners here. I'm really lucky. I was born into a great family, a wealthy family, and I used that to be successful quite young. And I realized that above success and above wealth and above privilege, what you cannot buy is experience, right? And I'm fundamentally interested, and I have been, in the narrative of my partners, where their origins are, how they grew up, how they were formed, because it forms what questions they ask themselves, and it forms what questions they ask me. And so I would never understand the market in Africa or in Southeast Asia, or I might not see something in an entrepreneur that my partners would, because of my experience and because of my background. So I see experience probably above all, above academics, above technical expertise. I believe the experience and your openness to question that experience and to look for more experience and to be curious as something that's so important. I can't read a book to understand Alina or Bongani's experience. I can't go to a university. I've done that already. I went to university and I've learned a lot, but I cannot go to university to understand the way they see entrepreneurs, or the way they see markets, or the way they have breakfast, which is different in Thailand than it is in South Africa. And that experience is something that is ageless, right?
Timeless.
And embedded in that, you can have that experience, but if you're not able to communicate it, if you're not willing to share that in an empathic way of curiosity, then it's not valuable, right? And what the three of us have as partners is a constant exchange of non-hierarchical experience. And that's what makes the exchange of information work.
Beautiful. For the closing, I'm going to ask 3 questions. And you can pick one or answer all 3. One of the questions is, if you had a chance to speak to your 16-year-old version, what would be one sentence you would say to that child? The second question is, if you had a chance to forgive yourself when you were the same age, what would you forgive? And then the last question is, what is the kindest thing someone has done to you that you can remember?
I'll take the last one. I was actually interested in the first one, but I'll do the last one. I would summarize that the kindest thing any person has done for me has been the privilege that I have seen of hard working from my mother. There's nothing that I can do to repay that. Because if it wasn't for that, I don't think I'd be here.
Amen.
So I'm very thankful for that.
Amen. Beautiful. Who's next?
I forgot the question.
Thank you for saying that.
So those that forget have to answer all.
Yeah, folks, I think we have to hear the others.
So the next one is you speaking to your 16-year-old with 2 choices: issuing a sentence or forgiving an action, or forgiving yourself at that age.
Go on, Roo.
Do you even still remember?
I can go, but I'm afraid. Okay. Thank you, Bongani. Oh, I thought that was a moment of compliment. No, see, my partners are equals, so they make fun of my age.
Don't worry, I get that all the time.
My answer to your question is my fundamental way of building business is probably based not on skill, but on the fact that I have a really terrible memory, right? I am literally a goldfish. Finding Nemo was about me. Right? And what that means is that I don't look backwards. Like, not as a principle. I literally don't look backwards. Like, I can't see it, right? And what's nice about that is 2 things. I'm fundamentally an optimist because I have to look forwards, right? The other nice thing is I can do the same thing twice and feel like it's the first time I've done it. So I'm like, God, this is great all the time. And
Not great for us.
It's not great for them. They always have to remind me of things. But It's very, 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 very nice.
Now you understand what we have to do.
It's true.
That's great. That's why you have a team of superheroes.
That's right.
They complement each other. Else, you wouldn't have the Avengers.
That's true. And so I don't think I have regrets. And I don't think I have any advice to myself because, I think
You look at today and you look at tomorrow.
Yeah, just I think the only advice I would give myself is and I did it, is take risk. Like everybody was going on one career path. They were becoming doctors and lawyers and going to business school. And I was constantly doing, I literally prototyped my life. You can say that looking backwards because everything looks logical. At the time, I had no idea what I was doing. But I tried everything and I continue to want to try everything.
Beautiful. Superb.
Okay, so the answer
Time travel.
I'm gonna answer both questions around advice to 16-year-old and
Super.
The second one was
forgiveness. Is
the
there
forgiveness,
anything you want?
Exactly.
That's 16-year-old.
Because the answer is the same.
Often it happens.
And the advice I would give my 16-year-old self. So I graduated school at 16, which was I was a great student. It was very early.
But you're still smart, don't worry.
It all went downhill from there. 16 was my peak.
You know, we have the same problem. I graduated also at 15, but I am wise enough to accept that I was smarter then.
Yeah.
And it's been strictly going down.
Yeah. That was just
strictly.
That was the smartest moment. But well, along those lines, my advice would be don't grow up too quickly. I think I grew up too quickly. And I think it speaks to all the things that we've been talking about today. Culture, entrepreneurship. I think staying youthful, staying curious, as Roo said, being able to play. And I think that's what we do really well as partners, and we encourage our teams to do is play. Go, the way we work and the way we communicate is through tactile things sometimes, and that is so important. And I think we have all sat through too many meetings, calls, conversations, with other types of stakeholders where the meeting itself is just so heavy because there's no fun, there's no playfulness in it, there's no curiosity, there's no risk taking, there's no, and there's no openness, right? And that stifles the conversations, and more importantly, it stifles the innovation in that conversation, and it leads to a worse outcome. And so if I could go back, I would say play more, go out more, have fun more, drink more, don't come home at 9 p.m. and don't study too hard, because growing up too quickly is the worst thing you can do.
This is a beautiful way to end this lovely conversation. Thanking you all for the gift of your time.
Hey, if you like today's story, press like, leave a comment, subscribe, come back for more stories from founders and funders changing the face of sports, tech, entertainment, and fashion from Africa to the rest of the world. We look forward to seeing you again soon.